Well, good morning. And it's good to be taking our reflection again, and not just on YouTube, but back in the sanctuary once more. During the past months, I've learned never to underestimate the ingenuity of Session Clerk Alan Forsyth. After David McLachlan gave his farewell reflection on the 1st of this month, Alan has contrived to have a David take part in the service every Sunday. Last week, it was our interim moderator, David Black. Today, it's me. He's even managed to get a David with a beard this morning. Although I think, Alan, you could have tried harder in the hair department. I asked Jackie in the church office to use the New English Bible translation for the Old Testament reading that Douglas gave us from Psalm 40. This was because it contains one essential word that doesn't appear in our more usual Good News translation. More of that essential word later. Like me, over the past weeks, you may have marveled at the exploits of athletes from all around the world at the Tokyo Olympics. Feats of strength, grace, stamina, and endurance. Feats of individual skill and of team tactics, all evidence of long hours, weeks of dedicated training and competition, all focused on that single moment when you are in the spotlight, and hopefully it all comes to fruition. Now, I never made it to Olympic standard, far from it, but despite my slight physique, I did once take part almost exactly 30 years ago in what was billed as a World Championship event. And this is where the particular word from Psalm 40 comes in. The event involved water, but it wasn't swimming. My record in the pool is a mere 2 lengths and gasping. And I didn't learn to swim until I was 28, and only then at the insistence of my new wife, Caroline. Not that I had an old wife, you understand. You know what I mean. I was newly married, and I got one of these ultimatums. I think by 28, David, you should really learn to swim. So I went along. So if not swimming, what? The clue is in that word, and the word is mud. And no, Colin, before you say it, it wasn't mud wrestling. Wait for it. It was the Palnaki Flounder Tramping Championship. Wow, I see you're assessing me in a new light. And this is where the serious bit comes in. Instead of bemoaning the fact that they weren't on the regular tourist route like Dumfries with its Burns connection, or Kirkcudbright with its artistic heritage, Palnaki resolved to see an advantage in what it did have, a tidal estuary with mud and flounders. You paid your money, grabbed a bucket, rolled up your trouser leg, and began to tramp mud, feeling with your toes for that elusive flounder. And the answer to the question, did I? I'm sorry, not. Psalm 40 says this: He lifted me out of the watery pit. Out of the slimy mud, he placed my feet on a rock and gave me a secure footing. Langside Church has provided that secure footing for so many people over the years. Just when they thought that figuratively slime and mud, prejudice or despair might drag them down, it was there waiting. And I don't mind admitting that Langside and Finn's Place provided just such a firm footing for me over 2.5 years ago when I needed it. Yes, we are in vacancy, perhaps a long one, but we can continue to provide that special welcome, outreach, and fellowship to all who seek it. But we listened to 2 readings this morning. The second from Mark's Gospel, the very well-known parable of the mustard seed. When I trained as an art teacher, I was always told to make your visual aids count, something that the whole class, or the whole congregation in this case, could see. With mustard seeds, I'm struggling. Even if I'd managed to find one and held it up, even the band would struggle to see it. But I've taken along, and you've seen it, a much bigger one. And this is it. The first large wood carving I did as a very young sculpture student at Grey School of Art, Aberdeen, more than 50 plus years ago. It's not a great carving. I went on to carve better. And I'm still carving and still learning. It shows an old man, long hair and beard, leaning on a stick in his right hand and supporting what appears to be a very heavy sack with his left. What is that to do with mustard seeds? Those seeds so tiny that they could easily be overlooked. Let me introduce you now to John Chapman, 1774 to 1845, American pioneer nurseryman, better known as Johnny Appleseed, nurseryman, conservationist, and missionary, and there can't have been too many of them in early 19th century America. He became a legend in his own lifetime and was responsible for introducing apples to Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and West Virginia. A kind, gentle soul, he spotted the potential of gathering apple seeds from the cider presses. He propagated them and then brought the young seedlings to the pioneers of America, hence their flourishing orchards. Mud and earth and insignificant seeds. As a conservationist, John Chapman saw potential for creativity, mission, and growth where others did not. Would that his message of care for God's world can hit home as Glasgow prepares to welcome COP26 to the city, at a time that the world is desperately in need of vision and hope for a reversal of climate change. I'm sure that if Jesus had been in Palnaki, he would have hitched up his robe and floundered tramped with the crowds and congratulated the people for seeing potential where others only saw mud. He had a talent for using what was at hand to preach the message of the kingdom, the discarded apple seeds. He called not priests or doctors of religious law to be his disciples, but ordinary folk, fishermen, tent makers, folk like you and me. He saw potential and opportunity where others saw only ordinary, sometimes very ordinary folk. He spotted something special in them, a seed that once nurtured could provide hope, healing, and well-being to the world. He calls us still today. Thanks be to God.